Hey parents, Carmine here with your video review of Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. While normally I would say another year, another Call of Duty, I can honestly say that Advanced Warfare both looks and feels different in a good way. While I do still have issues with some of the multiplayer design choices and was thoroughly disappointed by the second half of the campaign, the game as a whole takes some excellent risks that pay off well, and the first half of the campaign is by far my best Call of Duty experience in years. If you enjoy fast-paced multiplayer shooters and can compete with an often frustratingly skillful community, this is a great addition to your arsenal. Violence is the only real factor in this game. If you're sticking to the multiplayer, what you'll see will be extremely consistent. Hits result in a small amount of blood that can increase slightly if you're using an automatic weapon or a shotgun, but this is mitigated by a number of important factors. First, the fast-paced nature of the game often requires that the player move from target to target extremely quickly, meaning there isn't much time to linger on the damage being done to any single target in particular. Second, the distance from the player to the target is usually large enough that it can be difficult to see the blood. And finally, the game includes a number of different elements that act as aids to the player but also hide the blood and violence. This is especially true for the target enhancement optics, which highlight the enemy's silhouette in red, and in the hit markers that appear each time the player successfully hits an enemy.
Good job. Get ready for the next battle. UAV recon standing by. Enemy camp.
That's it for multiplayer. There is no Gore Anywhere in the multiplayer experience, and the violence stays consistent no matter what weapon the player uses. However, the single-player experience can be a slightly different animal at times. There are a few specific sections where the violence will be more noticeable. The first and only example of gore I could find in the game comes in the first chapter when the main character's arm is severed by a piece of metal debris. It might seem a bit gruesome, especially compared to the rest of the content, but it's a pivotal part of the plot for the rest of the game. Later on, the player catches up to one of the main antagonists and, in the course of a fistfight, slices a knife across the throat of the antagonist. The action is extremely quick and only blood is shown. Finally, late in the game, a biological weapon called Manticore is released in a city. The player watches the effects of the weapon on a soldier who ends up bleeding severely. It's not a particularly violent scene, but it's definitely a bit gross. However, these types of events were far outweighed by the normal combat in the game, and additionally are balanced by the significantly increased use of threat grenades and target-enhancing optics. While these gadgets that highlight an enemy in red are used sporadically in multiplayer, they are extremely useful in single-player. It eventually got to the point where I would always start an engagement by throwing a threat grenade and highlighting my enemies. This meant that I hardly saw any blood at all in normal combat. As a result of the overall mild levels of violence in both the single-player and multiplayer, we gave this game a recommended age of 14 years old. For the full written review, including the extra categories, log on to SideStoryGames.com.